Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
This morning, Amanda Gorman will become the youngest known inaugural poet when she performs at the 59th presidential inauguration. As the nation's first Youth Poet Laureate, you may recognize Gorman. She's performed 5 commissioned poems for CBS This Morning over the past few years. Today, she'll deliver her original composition, The Hill We Climb, at the Capitol in front of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the entire nation. We spoke to her ahead of her big moment.
In the Declaration's pages, we write in new order for the ages, where out of many we are one, bright as a sun and bold as an eagle, a nation of all people, by all people, for all people.
Amanda Gorman has written poems for historic occasions. Now she's making history herself.
How cool is this?
It's amazing, especially at my age. No one really gets to say at 22, I am the inaugural poet.
Gorman says she researched the speeches of Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as she began writing.
And then on the Wednesday in which we saw the insurrection at the Capitol, that was the day that the poem really came to life, and I really put pedal to the metal.
Did that change the poem for you?
Definitely. I wanted it to be a message of hope and unity. And I think that Wednesday for me really just underscored how much that was needed, but to not turn a blind eye to the cracks that really need to be filled.
Gorman was named the nation's first Youth Poet Laureate at 19. At 16, she was Youth Poet Laureate of Los Angeles.
I sing a neighborhood anthem for the silence,
where she was raised by a single mom, Joan, an English teacher.
The anthem will sing, Amanda, drop your R's, but do not drop your volume. Amanda,
and writing became her way over a daunting obstacle.
I had a speech impediment, and so if I couldn't use my voice, then I would author my voice on the page. So it's really been a godsend and a lifeline for me.
How did you overcome it?
Poetry. And, to put it short, spoken word became my own type of pathology. And so once I arrived at the point in my life in high school where I said, you know what, writing my poems on the page isn't enough for me. I have to give them breath and life. I have to perform them as I am. That was the moment that I was able to grow past my speech impediment.
Gorman, who had particular trouble with the letter R, also used music as therapy.
My favorite thing to practice was the song Aaron Burr, Sir, from Hamilton, because that is jam-packed with R's. And I said, if I can keep up with, Leslie in this track, then I am on my way to being able to say this R in a poem. We wild, we want, we stunt, we strive, we hustle, we hungry, we run free, here we come, we one country, we ain't done, see.
So how do you feel when you are performing these poems?
When I am on stage, I feel electric. I feel like I could breathe fire. I feel like I am summoning the energy, not only of myself, but of my ancestors. But the point of protest isn't winning. It's holding fast to the promise of freedom, even when fast victory isn't promised.
Poetry is a weapon. It is an instrument of social change. And poetry is one of the most political arts out there because it demands that you rupture and destabilize the language in which you're working with. Inherently, you are pushing against the status quo. And so for me, it's always existed in that tradition of truth-telling.
Today, she will do her truth-telling on the steps of the United States Capitol.
How do you prepare for something like this?
One of the preparations that I do always whenever I perform is I say a mantra to myself, which is, I am the daughter of Black writers. We're descended from freedom fighters who broke through chains and changed the world, they call me. And that is the way in which I prepare myself for the duty that needs to get done.
Do you say that inside your head or do you say it aloud?
If I can, and I'm not going to scare anybody off, I say it out loud. So I'm usually like in a bathroom or a dressing room.
I love that.
But if, backstage, and I imagine if I'm like standing next to Joe Biden, I might like keep it here. He can go work on it, have to worry about craziness. I don't want Secret Service to think, Amanda's gone. Mayday, yeah, no.
She is so amazing. Amanda says she battled that speech impediment all the way into college. She graduated Harvard in the spring.
Yeah.
She's working on a bunch of books. She's got a children's book called Change Things that comes out in September. Long-term plans, 2036, running for president, she says.
I believe it.
She always has that. She already has a hashtag, Commanda in Chief.
I like it. Listen, I got a great story for you, Anthony, because I told Oprah that you were doing her.
Yeah.
Oprah said she reached out to Amanda because when Maya did her speech, at the inaugural for Bill Clinton,
right,
Oprah bought Maya a coat that's a pretty blue coat. So she reached out to Amanda and said, I'd like to carry on the tradition.
Yeah.
Amanda said, I already have a coat. It's in my favorite color. So Oprah got her these gold hoop earrings and a ring that's shaped like a bird cage as a nod to Maya. I know how the cage bird sings.
Yeah.
So today when you're watching her, we'll see that.
It's really exciting.